Hello, good morning, folks. Coming to you from the farm this morning, or outside, kind of trying to pretend like I'm farming this time of the year, right? So I really wanted to hear what other people are doing about this really cold weather that's coming, and I wanted to kind of keep everybody up to date on what I'm doing here. You know, Cool Flowers really gets a lot of people out in their garden and farms a lot more this time of the year. And so I just wanted to kind of update you. Good morning, Susan and Colleen and Celia. And we got a whole bunch of folks on here. So glad everybody is here this morning. And so first I want to talk about outdoor stuff, and then I'm going to walk inside and we're going to look at good morning, Daniel. Yep, I've got my britches up down here. That's what we call our row covers, britches up, britches down. And we're going to talk about that and how I'm really changing my perspective of the way that I think of and look at row covers. Good morning, Dawn and Brenda. So the cold's coming. So, you know, I'm in southeastern Virginia, and we have had for, you know, a lot of people that aren't in tune to weather, like farmers are, really think that some of these swings are a new thing, but in fact, this kind of stuff has been going on. I remember my first year farming 20 years ago, we experienced exactly what we're getting ready to experience here in the next 4 days. I think it's going to be 59 degrees tomorrow and 17 degrees tomorrow night. You know, I've always felt like welcome to Virginia. That's good morning, Tammy and Kara and Katie. So this is not anything new to farmers. And I will say it happens more frequently now, I think. And so we're forecasted to be, as I just said, like high 50s tomorrow. Then we go to 17 or 15 tomorrow night. And then the next night is also in the low teens. And then we're back to normal, you know, 50 to, well, it's not really normal, but back up in the 50s, I think. So I know I may have mentioned years past in, you know, talks past that I used to put my row covers up right after I planted Cool Flowers in October, and then just left them up for the winter. It was really the most carefree garden of ever. That's what really encouraged me and got me so heavily involved in farming, was actually the carefreeness of Cool Flowers. Well, that's no longer the case. And yesterday, as I had Bobo come to work an extra day, this time of the year, she's kind of cleaning out stuff. She loves to sort and organize. So we do a lot of that this time of the year, and also seed starting. But I had to have her come an extra day so she could drag all of our covers out, because as Daniel noticed right from the beginning, good morning, Kristen and Teresa, and Sarah and Wanda, that I haven't been really diligent about my row covers this year. And it's because we just haven't gone below like 24 degrees. And frankly, I have learned that Cool Flowers that I grow during the winter, those things that are winter hardy for me, do just fine at that temperature, because they're kind of happy growers. They're not struggling plants. They're pretty happy where they are, with the exception of, I'll say two things. One is dill. I love to plant dill in the fall because we get it earlier and it's much bigger. Hey, Sharon and Sarah and Angela. That dill is questionable, as is Ami Magus. Good morning, neighbor. And hey, Denise. That Ami Magus is one of those groups of flowers that can be iffy. So those things that I think of covering for sure with these low teen temperatures coming are pretty much all of the Cool Flowers. Not that they won't take that degree, but I just don't want to risk it. And it also just prevents some cold damage. So I'm going to hop around here in just a minute. Good morning, Thomas. So the dill and the Ami Magus, I know that if I don't cover them, we'll lose them for sure. So I use lightweight row cover. It's Ag 19, which really only gives like 4 degrees of cold protection. But I find row cover does a lot more for cool season plants than just actual temperature. it's protecting the plants from the actual frost, just getting onto its leaves, and the wind protection. And then if it's going to be cold throughout a sunny day, the row cover kind of concentrates that sun. It has the greenhouse effect, right? So it does a lot more. So we have, good morning, Diane. Good morning from Alaska. Well, my goodness, in Maryland, we got people all over the Pacific Northwest, Mississippi, good gracious. So I'm going to go back and look. If y'all are posting questions, I will scroll back through in just a moment. So we pulled out our row covers. Everything is covered, all of our transplants, all of our direct seeded stuff. I will say that all of our plants are pretty happy. I don't feel like sometimes I have some beds that are like, gosh, they look so terrible. I don't know if they'll live in optimal conditions, much less cold. So I'm sitting in the golf cart. I'm going to pop this around here so that you guys can see the bed. Hello, Janice. We have Canada, too. So, this is the direct seeded beds, and these beds are really, really tight. And, as the farmer of this group here on this farm, I'm always trying to make my pathways as narrow as possible because they're just more work to take care of. Well, I heard from Bobo yesterday how these were too narrow, and I have to agree, like you can't even walk down that pathway. I do not know why. I just walked 2 feet away and I got low connectivity. Anyway, our internet issues hopefully are going to be fixed the end of next week when our cameras are installed and our Wi-Fi is boosted. So I'm going to stand back here. So the pathways are narrow, and so I have wire hoops that actually go on 30-inch beds. When the beds are narrower, like you can see this bed right here is a little narrower, I turn the hoops kind of on an angle when I install them so that, so it works out well. You can see that we put bags on every single on every single hoop because we get rockin' wind here. So these all have a single layer over on this side. I will be adding a second layer of Ag 19 this afternoon just for safekeeping to the dill bed and to the Bells of Ireland. Bells of Ireland, we know now that they are winter hardy to zone 6 based on lots of flower farmers' reports that they're growing them out in the field in zone 6. But I just don't want to lose the tips of my plants to hard cold. So I'm going to double row cover them. I'll double the dill. And then Bobo also has already double covered the transplants down here. We had the single covers down, but the deer, I will tell you, ran through this, across this beds 2 or 3 times and just ripped enormous holes. So we just went ahead and actually double covered them. So we're kind of battened down here. So my change of attitude on row covers is I no longer think of them as a permanent fixture up in the winter. I pretty much put them up and down as weather dictates. So I will be taking these row covers back down probably on Tuesday when we go back up into the 50s and leaving them down until we're going to hit another brutal teen number. So I used to say below freezing, but now I say below 25 degrees, and certainly in the teens we put them up. So if anybody has questions about cool season stuff out here, be sure and just type it on, and I'm going to flip this back around and we're going to walk inside. I want to show you what I cut this morning. I do church flowers every third Sunday is mine, and y'all may not know this about me. Oop, I didn't even turn the lights on in here yet. That I'm not a flower arranger. I really don't take any pleasure in flower arranging. Really, it's a struggle, but I do it every third week. So what's there to cut, here in Virginia this time of the year? Well, I went out and cut some willows. So I'm going to show you those. I'm going to flip this around again here and show you my table here. So I don't grow a ton of pussy willow. I just grow enough because we like, for instance, I love to have it to use it for winter flower arrangings when's needed. And then we cut it and save it for our early members only market. And so these, I have 3 different types. This is 2 of them. And I will tell anybody what will happen is I typically plan on the 3rd week in January being my flower type arrangement, being willow sticks. And then I use them in a arrangement, and then these sticks I will then root to increase my stock of pussy willow plants, or trees actually. And so this, I do not know the variety names of this, but I will tell you, anybody interested in getting some great pussy willow started, I mean, you literally buy sticks. So what would happen, I will cut about a 12-inch stick like this, and you just root it in water, literally. But Kent Miles, I don't know if Kent happens to be on here. He's on Facebook. You can go to his page. I forget the name of his farm. I'm sorry, it's just escaped me. But he sells, I just saw last week he was offering sticks, bundles, for you to root, and there's a great one. So this is, I believe, a Japanese variety. I actually bought both of these way back when at a garden show, brought them home, rooted them, and now I cut from them every year. But this is the stage I love. I love before they pop with their little, I call that their little pussy fuzz, but this is before that happens. And so I'm going to make an arrangement out of these, but this is my favorite. And I will tell you, for any flower farmers watching this, my customers cannot get enough of this fasciated pussy willow. This is got flat, I'm going to try to turn around here so you can get a better look at these. This is contorted craziness. I will cut this. I left my clippers here so I could do this. You know, this is kind of hard to do by yourself, but so I will probably I am going to cut this one off, and I'll clean this dead debris stuff off right here. And I don't know if Susan Gordon is watching here, but she gifted me with a beautiful vase, pottery, that her daughter actually made. And that's what these are going in, to that vase that she gave me last year when she came to Flower Farm and a workshop here on the farm. So this contorted stuff, I mean, look at this one down here. These arrangers cannot get enough of these sticks. And I'll cut off a lot of these wild ones, but look at this one. And y'all, I can't tell you how easy pussy willow is to grow. It will grow into an enormous tree if you do not cut it into submission. Oh, there you go, Janice. Illinois willows. So, yeah, that's it. So a couple people know Kent. And you can buy sticks from him, root them, and then you'll have pussy willow next year at this time. Because what happens is we keep it cut to the ground. So I will harvest all these and leave about a 12-inch stump of a tree. And then that way it will grow new stems like what you're seeing laying here for next year. If you let it go, it'll grow into a 50-foot tree, and you won't have any good stems to cut. So this is why you shouldn't plant too much of it, because you want to be able to cut it all down. I mean, you can use these willows to make cool accessories for your garden, great for flower arranging. And if you're a commercial flower farmer, there's the germination chamber. We redid it for flower farming school. It's not fired up yet. We're going to walk in here to the seed room, and not much is going on yet, but I'm going to, first I'll tell you why these seedlings are not in the germination chamber. I have found that cool flowers, hardy annuals, cool weather loving plants, their seeds, typically, what my experience has been, they still like cool air temperatures, but their soil needs to be warmed. So I find using a heat mat, this is a heat mat on this table, and thank you for answering questions, Janice. I appreciate that, because I can't read and talk at the same time. So these are on heat mats. So these are things that Bobo just started. And I will just tell you, I had a question from someone about, that I'm going to get to questions in a minute, but she asked about, she wanted to start small quantities of seeds and how confusing it is to have a bunch of different seeds on a big tray. Well, that is why I recommend, and I'm reaching across here, I recommend you use a tray that is suitable for your volume. See how this is a smaller tray right here? Because we didn't need 240 of whatever this is, lambada. And unlike this is Sweet William, who that is one full tray of the same thing. And tip, this is the worst tray ever. I thought I threw these trays away last year, but Bobo used it. You can't water it because water runs out these end handles right here. But when you're growing small quantities, like for instance tomatoes, we start all of our heirloom tomatoes on these 5x7 trays because they hold 40 of the blocks. Because you need to be able to A, keep track of what's in the blocks, but secondly, they germinate at different rates. So using a tray that is suitable for the number of blocks of a specific plant that you're starting is really, really helpful. So Bobo just started this stuff. These are the cool flowers that will be planted out in what I describe as very early spring. That's 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost. I had to think about that. My last spring frost is expected April 15th. So we're going to be planting these out Valentine's Day or March 1st, anywhere in there. So these are several different ones. And I want to show you my secret to Ami Magus can sometimes be a little testy to germinate. So this is tray was sown with seeds. It sat over there on the heat mat for one day, and then I take it off the heat mat and just set it under lights. I think it gets too much heat from the heat mat sometimes to germinate, and you can see that it's just, this all just happened just since yesterday. So they're in process. You can see little ones just start to sprout, like right there. You can see them. So that's been my trick for sprouting Ami Magus, which can sometimes be a little testy. And so another thing that I wanted to point out is that I like to mist my blocks when they're germinating. Not so much for the moisture, which they appreciate that, but I like to use the, well, it's right there. Let's see what it's called. Neptune's Harvest, and it's the fish and seaweed is the official name. And I just put some here into my spray bottle, and then I mist the blocks. I learned that this helps with germination from an organic lawn care professional who that was their secret to getting grass to germinate is after they seeded lawns, they sprayed it with a foliar fed it, they used a sprayer to spray the lawn. And anyway, I learned a lot from her. And so I do mist it, but I will tell you there is a strong drawback to that. And that is the smell. I will tell you just a little funny story. So this morning I came out early to get everything set up here, got the pussy willow, to talk to you guys. And I mixed my bottle, made my bottle ready. Then I went back in the house to do my little chores that I needed to do before I came back out here. And I sat down for a moment to post the little commercial about this event on Facebook. And Barry was laying in the floor about 10 feet away from me. And oh my goodness, I was sitting there typing and I was thinking to myself, holy cow, what did she roll in? That is a stinking dog. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe how stinky she is. Guess what, folks? It was my hands from just handling that bottle and shaking it up. So I am just forewarning you. I do not use the fertilizer on the day that my sister works because she just really can't hardly bear the smell. But it's worth it if you can find a way to make use of that. But when you spray it, it really, just really brightens things up. And so down here is where we are germinating Bupleurum, which is kind of a tough indoor germinator. And these were just sown yesterday, so they're not under here. So Bobo filled trays, sowed the seeds on the surface. They need darkness to germinate, but they also need a lot of oxygen. So we just sow them on the surface. We water the soil in, sow the seeds on the surface, then literally just turn another tray on top of it upside down, creates enough darkness on there, and leave it literally for 2 weeks. We don't touch this. We don't water it. It just sits in the bottom of the room here. And when you take these trays off in 2 weeks, you'll have sprouts everywhere. That is the secret to Bupleurum. I direct seed Bupleurum in the fall because it's just too hot indoors to do that. Because it's cold now, and it's cool down here. I mean, our concrete is cold to the touch. So that works really, really well. What else did I want to say to you guys? So I'm going to walk back outside because I am kind of hot. Oh, the other tip is, so when you use these organic liquid fertilizers, and I am going to scroll through and look at the message questions. I see questions. But I want to say that when you're using organic fertilizers, chlorine in the water really affects that, how well it works. And of course, we have chlorinated water. And so I keep this trash can. This is my little sink. And I keep this trash can, and you can see my watering can is floating in there. And so I watered this morning, and then I filled it back up, and it sits overnight. 24 hours is long enough to sit. That also kind of brings it to more room temperature, particularly in the warm season. So that's just a tip, and it's a lot faster to dip your watering can in there than it is to stand there and wait for it to fill up. So that's just a really efficient way. I just found something we've been looking for. Why in the heck are those things in here? And I also want to point this out. So commercial growers, I'm testing this new light because we just learned that a light, the new version of a light that we offer on our website is like an inch longer than it used to be, and it didn't fit very well. It didn't fit on racks like this. So I just got this one 2 weeks ago, so we'll be updating our website with it, but it fits perfectly on here. And this is, I believe it's a T8. Let me look up under there. I can't tell if it's a T8 or a T12. So the rundown on lights. See how close this light is to this shelf. And then see with this light, and look how far it is from that shelf. The difference is in the type of light bulb. These brown lights, which I do not like, I wish someone would come take them from me, they're T5s. T5s are the really skinny bulbs. The skinnier a bulb, the hotter the bulb is. This light gets so hot that even at this distance, which I'm guessing is 15 inches, it still dries out the trays underneath of it faster than these others do and cooks them. It cooks the seedlings if it's too close. So I get questions all the time, especially when I'm showing my grow room, why are some lights low and why are some not? It's the difference in the light bulb. So my preference is not T5s. I like T8s or T12s. I really don't have a preference between the two of them. And there are LEDs amongst that. And I haven't used LEDs and have no opinion. I'm not a light expert. I just know what gives me the most operating space. See, this shelving unit has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shelves. Each shelf holds 750 small soil blocks. When I use the brown lights, I only get 3 shelves. So it knocks out half of my production area, if you're understanding the gist of what I'm saying to you. So the light bulbs are what make the difference. So I'm going to walk outside now, and we're going to look at questions because I am hot in here. Let's see, I'm just reading. I told you about lights and misting, and we're going to look at questions. And so I talked to you about one of the reasons that I don't use the germination chamber this time of the year is I just find that I have a stronger germination in cooler air temperatures with them on heat mats. So the soil is warm, but the air temperature is cool, right? So that makes a really big difference. And we'll switch to the germination chamber the minute that we start doing warm season tender annuals. So first, I just want to talk, I have about 5 or 6 questions that people posted prior to this Facebook. So let's just stop and talk about this for a minute. So I'm starting to do, we're calling them Lisa Live. I'm trying to start doing these. I'm trying to commit to once a week, but I'm not saying that. But we do post it on Facebook and Instagram and give you a good heads up when it's going to happen. And we're also, I'm tweaking this stuff down. I'm also going to make an obvious place on that post where post your questions here. So let's just say you can't be here to ask live. You can post your questions there. I will address them first, and then we'll go through and answer all your questions that are on the feed here. So I'm just really trying to beef up our live presence so you guys can ask questions. And this is also where those folks that are taking my online courses, Seed Starting Made Easy and the Easy Cut Flower Garden, those are classes. Those are not like Flower Farm in School, which is a long-term program. People taking classes, this is the place you need to come and ask your questions. And if you can't be live, again, you can just post them on that Facebook announcement, and I'll do my best to answer them. So I already answered the first question. Someone was asking about, it was somebody with a home garden, and she's doing a little cutting garden, and she wanted to be able to soil block. So first I want to say that my rule when I'm starting seeds for anything is I start typically twice as many seeds as I want plants, because stuff just happens. Okay, so if you're starting a small garden and you only need 8 plants, let's just say, of one specific plant, I would still start 20. I always start a minimum typically of 20 blocks. That's a cluster of the small soil blocks. And if you're using a tray that is adequate size to the number of blocks you use, that way you can have a tray for each variety. That allows you to label it. I find that the foam trays with a black magic marker works really well, and then you can just put masking tape, y'all. Literally, masking tape works great. To reuse the foam trays, just tape over the last seed's name, and we have trays that have a ton of tape on top of them. So that's about using how you can keep track of what you're growing and do the best for them. Somebody asked me if Chinese forget-me-nots were cool flowers, and in fact they are. My neighbor has a boatload of them in their yard, so I've watched them reseed and bloom every year, but they are not good cut flowers. They don't hold up long enough, and they're kind of hard to germinate. And so I had an interesting question from someone living in Zone 4. And Janice, if you're still on here, my Canadian buddy, you could answer this. She is struggling with planting cool flowers because of just the crazy wheat swings. And she was specifically talking about larkspur. And so she was wondering about, starting transplants, or she feels like she is so cold for so long she can't direct seed in the early spring and then give them time to germinate and grow before it gets really hot and takes them out or starts causing warm weather issues. So my suggestion, when you have crazy weather like that, if you live in the really north in Canada or up in Montana and places that just have really short growing seasons, is yes, to try to start from transplants, which is possible to do with things like larkspur. It's just not easier to do. But only start your transplants 2 to 4 weeks before it's time to plant out, or when you think it's time to plant out. This person had indicated that their transplants just grew crazy big before she could get them planted. That's timing. So I agree that starting from transplants might be a good thing. And hi, Lynn. Good morning. Hey, that's my cousin, Lynn. Anybody that lives here in Hampton Roads, this is my restaurant family, and they have a restaurant over in Smithfield called Q Daddy's that is barbecue and just tons of delicious food worth driving for. Anyway, so check that out. Q Daddy's has a Facebook page too. Those are my cousins, and Grace, who is there, used to work on the farm here. So anybody that has any additional experience growing cool flowers in really cold regions, we appreciate hearing from you. Somebody asked about poor germination on cover crops. Well, she knows why she had poor germination, but what should she do now? Well, whenever I have poor germination of anything, whether it's in a bed of a cash crop or a cover crop, crummy germination, I turn it under and start over with whatever's next. There's nothing you can do to save it. And then somebody asked me, and that's the last written question, and I'll start scrolling, about irrigation for cool flowers. Well, for those of you that fall plant cool flowers, most of us in zones, winter hardiness zone 6, 7, 8, and 9 can really fall plant, just like you've seen here. I'm going to turn around and let you look at the garden instead of looking at me. That fall plant cool flowers like what you're looking at here. What happens for us, literally, and I mean, I think we get like 50 inches of rain in my area a year on average. I'm sure it's twice as much as that this year. But anyway, we plant cool flowers in the fall. We hand water it once, and then we don't water all winter, because guess what? It rains and snows more often, and it's typical. And then typically it rains a little bit more in the spring. So we typically, irrigation is installed in our beds that were made over there that have film on them. But our direct seeded beds do not get irrigation. I would say if I hit a long drought, I'd hand water them, but we don't find cool flowers to be in the need. If you're in a region where you're spring planting, early spring planting, then you may need to do it. But we use T-tape and drip irrigation here, so I'm just walking to a different spot, y'all. So I'm going to put away my notes. I hope that answers your question. So we do use irrigation, but typically cool flowers is not in need. So I'm going to go, oh my goodness gracious, there's a lot of, let's see, I'm reading all these greetings from all over the place. Thank you for loving my books. Arkansas has ice. Texas is probably not iced yet. And Wichita, Texas. All right, I saw some questions. Oh, we're down to 7 degrees, Dawn. Oh my goodness. In Alaska, Maryland, rain and 45. 9 degrees tomorrow. So the first thing I want to say is well-hydrated plants face cold temperatures much better than struggling plants. So I learned that years ago in a class I took about shrubs, planting the landscape. It said people don't think about how important it is to deeply water your shrubs and trees newly planted within a couple of years heading into winter, because that just makes them healthier. So 9 degrees, Jiminy crickets, I would definitely be covering something. Pacific Northwest has been mild temperatures this winter. Well, we were mild up until now, Christy. So keep your eyes peeled. 65 today, 35 tomorrow in Mississippi. Yeah, that's kind of what we're going to go even lower. That's classic Virginia. Let's see. So somebody just say about doubling up on the covers. I double cover versus buying heavy covers because I like all my row covers to be the same weight, because it's very difficult to tell them apart when you're out there. You should have seen Bobo yesterday pulling out all these row covers and trying to sort them and get the right length and da-da-da-da-da. So for me, I prefer to be more flexible and have Ag 19s, which is typically what I use, and then in instances where I need a heavier, I just put 2 covers. I have even been known to put 3 covers when cold like is coming. I'd love to see what you do for the church flower arrangements. Well, we'll see what it looks like. I mean, it should just be sticks. I am so not a flower arranger, y'all, and I have no interest in learning either. I have some of the best flower arrangers ever offer to teach me, and I'm doing what I love. Love your thinking. I've seen my snaps. Yeah, snaps, especially the rocket snaps. I have heard reports of down to winter hardy for small transplants going through winter healthy in zone 4. So, hey, zone 4 person, there's one you can try. Do you plant a second sowing of Rudbeckia for fall bouquet blooms? If yes, how do you keep it from frying in the sun because it's a cool flower I would love to use in the fall? So, Rudbeckias, I did an experiment one year where I fall planted. Our fall planted Rudbeckia, I'm just keep moving so y'all can look at different things. Fall planted Rudbeckia typically blooms early summer. We have Indian summer Rudbeckia for Mother's Day. It is awesome. But then, of course, after about 6 weeks, it really poops out. So one year I planted it again in very early spring. Well, that was too early. That was because that early planting pretty much bloomed at almost the same time as the fall planting. And I haven't done this, and if somebody does, I think that the Rudbeckias really they're a cool flower because they're winter hardy, not because they can't take warm temperatures. Doesn't that make it complicated? That's how Lisianthus is too, by the way. So I think planting another round of Rudbeckia later than very early spring, more like when you're planting your warm season, will give you those later in the summer blooms. And fall bloomers, there are some Rudbeckias. Triloba Rudbeckia does naturally bloom later in the fall. What happens is some of the Rudbeckias are day length sensitive, so that runs into the problem. So I would say plant some Rudbeckia when you're planting your tomatoes and zinnias the first time around, and see when that'll get your blooms. Can I still direct seed cool flowers in North Florida and start my warm season annuals to plant out in March? Yes. In North Florida, your big benefit is to have done this back in probably October, because it just gives them more time to get established before they have to bloom. But yes, you still have time, but just know that if you don't have excellent performance, it's because you planted too late. In cool flowers, you talk about using milk jugs as weights on the row cover. Now use the bags. Have you discovered a good reason to not use the milk jugs, or the bags are much easier? When I wrote Cool Flowers, I was not farming at the high intensity that I have since 2013. And yes, I just use bags because they're easier on the back. You don't have to bend down as far to grab them. It's just easier. And I need a bunch of them, as you can see. And this isn't all of them that we have. So any weight is good. A milk jug is excellent, like a weight bag, because it doesn't rip the row cover like rocks can do, big rocks. So my friend Kent Miles at Illinois Willows is the one that you can find him on Facebook and ask him about buying pussy willow. Good morning. I have both your books. Love them, so helpful. My question is, I have an unheated greenhouse that I'll be starting seeds in the soil blocks. I cannot start outside because we have very high winds and row covers won't last even a few hours. Should I use the floating row cover over my seed starts on the sprouting tables? If you are starting seeds, it doesn't matter if you're starting cool season or warm season. They all need warmth. You cannot start even cool flowers in a cool, like garage or greenhouse. Even if you're heating the soil, my grow room air temperature, my goal is to have it like 65 or 70 degrees. But below that, I don't care how much you heat the soil, they still cannot sprout. So that's one of the wonderful things about soil blocks. Even people that aren't set up to start soil blocks indoors in their home where it's a nice temperature, you can kind of makeshift set up a place for those conditions when it's just still too early and too cold and you don't have heat in your greenhouse. And then once the warmth starts, you can move everything outside. But once your seedlings sprout, they will continue to need at least 65 degrees to grow, right? I mean, plants need heat to grow. So I don't know what the answer is to an unheated greenhouse at this time of the year, except that you'll use it like a cold frame, basically. What is the name of the distorted pussy willow? Oh, and Janice told you it's fantail or it's fasciated. And my understanding, and Ken will straighten you out on this if I'm wrong, my understanding is that it's that particular variety's susceptibility to a virus that causes it to do that. I will tell you, it is if I was big time growing commercial as we were up until 2 years ago, I would grow nothing but the fantail because it's really not available, and all the designers and all the florists just really, really love it. Okay, let's see. My Lisianthus did not germinate. Welcome to most people's worlds, Kristen. It's not you. Lisianthus is difficult at best to germinate. It can be done. I've seen some just so over on our closed Flower Farm and School Facebook page, one of the students there just had excellent germination. You just have to really give it the conditions that it needs, which is a consistent 70-degree air temperature or so, and it takes it a long time. And because it takes such a long time to sprout, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong during that time. I no longer sprout Lysianthus. I buy plugs. So I don't know that it really has. The pelleted variety, the pelleted seed may be a little easier to germinate, to answer your question. How close do you place the lights above the sprouts, or do you raise the lights as they grow, or do you have several racks with different height lights? So yes, the height of the light from the seedling depends on what kind of light bulb you have, right? If it's a T5, they're super hot. You got to keep them at least 15 to 18 inches away, which is why I don't care for those. T12s, T8s, which don't get warm, they're right on top of it, just a couple of inches. And you can either do one of two things. I have my lights on chains, so it's easy to lift them, raise it up and down, or if you have a lot of lights like I do, I can move trays from shelf to shelf according to how tall they are. Or another option is you can use boxes underneath your trays, like a shoe box to lift it and lower, take it out when it's lower. That was a great tip that Claire shared a while back. So do you bottom water? Kara, aren't you the one that got the Lysianthus to germinate so well? You can chime in and help that person. So do you bottom water in addition to spraying the fertilizer? Yes, I pour water into my trays every morning. The tray blocks are dry. Your block should dry out every 24 hours. So I water every morning, and once a week it includes that same fertilizer. Greetings from Richmond, Virginia. How often do you miss with seaweed fertilizer? Well, because like I mentioned that I can't do it when my sister is here because she just can't stand the smell. So 2 to 3 times a week. You know, it's a light dose. So you could do it every day. That's the joy of organic fertilizers, y'all. They are not so powerful that you can't use them as often. Good morning from Tennessee. Minnesota, good gracious. What temperature is your seed starting room? So this time of the year, about 65 to 70 degrees is the air temperature in that room. I maintain that because our building is heated by leaving the door open, because there is an air conditioner, a heating vent in there, and it'll get really warm in there really fast. Plus the windows let the sun in. So 65 to 70, I leave the door open. Once we start warm season annuals, I close the door and the temperature climbs to almost 100 degrees every day. So 65 to 70 cool season, at least 80 for warm season. So thank you. I'm glad. What flowers do you start inside? Oh my goodness, Sherry, that is a loaded question. Both of my books, Vegetables Love Flowers and Cool Flowers, tells for each flower I talk about what my preference is, because there's reasons based on that. You can head over to thegardenersworkshop.com and find my books, as well as lots of tutorials and information. And actually you can go to also flower seeds on our store, and we give a lot of growing information on each individual seed. Let's see, I'm really glad you said that about Chinese forget-me-nots. I will not plant those for cuts now and will plant them in my honeybee patch. Very good. Do you both direct seed and transplant cool flowers in the February 14th to March 1st frame time for your area? No. Good question, Lauren. Direct seeding outdoors 8 weeks before your last frost date, no matter where you live, there's not enough heat outside, right? The seeds will just sit out there and wait, but you can count on what will grow are weed seeds, like chickweed and all of those types of things. So I typically only plant transplants in very early spring. That's why you saw my Bupleurum starts in the bottom of our seed starting room, which I do direct seed that in the fall, but we have to plant transplants this time of the year. I have your fantastic book, Cool Flowers. You give a lot of great info, including pinching. What warm season flowers do you pinch? That is another very long question, Tom. So basically, branchers. There you go. That's in a nutshell. How much cold can Lisianthus take? Lisianthus is winter hardy, and I got this straight from Laura Hodges, my friend who is in, I don't know if she's still in Nebraska. She told me, she's the reason I started fall planting Lisianthus, that Lisianthus is winter hardy to zone 4. And it's not the cold that kills Lizzie, it's wet feet. And in wintertime, wet feet is different than summertime. Wet feet means soil that just never dries out in the winter. So you have to have really good drainage. So in zone 9, you definitely plant Lizzie in the fall. And you can do it now too, for sure. Supposed to drop to -2 in north central Pennsylvania tomorrow night. Yikes, ikes, ikes. I was just talking about that. My neighbor just moved from Pennsylvania, and she was saying how she doesn't miss that. So, yes, yikes. Double, triple row cover. Good morning from snowy and foggy. Oh, Oregon. Hey, Oregon. Crossing fingers, our cool weather in southwest Wisconsin and northern Illinois locations. We are expecting teens and single digits for the next week and a half under row cover poly. So I want to just say that where do you purchase your sandbags? We sell them in small quantities, but you can go to like Uline. They're sandbags, so just search engine that and you can find them in mass quantities. But we sell them like 10 for $10 or something. The one thing you'll learn about cool flowers and surviving cold temperatures is having healthy plants heading into this weather. That means planting them on time for your region, for what your conditions are, giving them what they want, good drainage, but well established. And then when you hit these cold spots, I'm telling you, they will just survive. We had Bells of Ireland take single digits 2 years ago here, and they did not. They survived. Killed the tips, but they survived. Can you estimate how many peony bushes you have? No, I can't. I think that garden that we're looking at is 70 feet now. I probably have 90 big roots, and there's a zigzag in the bed, and the roots started out being 24 inches apart. No, 12 inches apart. Do you recommend sprouting seeds under lights, indoors in a room with lots of lights, or in a room with less lights? It doesn't matter. You plant the seed according to instructions, either cover it with soil for darkness or push it or firmly seed it on the surface for light. If it needs light, it just needs room light. It doesn't, low light would even work. So you're okay for either one. Have you grown dahlias from seed or tubers? Pros and cons. Tubers, life is too short, Thomas, to grow dahlias from seed. They all grow into tubers. It just takes longer. You did get that's Kara. She's the Lisianthus queen. She used pelleted seeds, and she soil blocked them. They were beautiful. Do you find that florists prefer to buy specific cultivars or Rudbeckia, trying to determine best crops for florist sales? Emily, I talk about that in depth in Flower Farming School online, which will happen again this coming fall. You can sign up now to get an email notifying you when registration opens. And yes, I do find that they want not what looks like wildflowers. And so specific cultivars really do draw them. And we sell the same seed of those that I grow. Trying to get a jump on our Nigella this year. Should I direct seed and unleaded low tunnel or risk transplanting? No. First off, Nigella should be direct seeded. It is super winter hardy, so I don't know what zone you're in, Katie, but it's hardy to zone 6. So you either need to have planted it last fall if you're in zone 6, 7, 8, or 9. I have never soil blocked it. I don't know what its germination rate is like. It's a strong germinator, so you might try it. So Kara's going on about what she did. When you say they survived single digits, is that out in the open? They were out in the open, our Bells of Ireland, because we had snow that then melted, and the row covers were so frozen I couldn't get them back up. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just have to do To be sure I understand your answer to Lauren's question, cool season transplants versus those needing direct seed, do you recommend waiting to direct seed until warmer soil or only planting transplants? Correct. So to clarify, I do not direct seed any cool flowers in very early spring. If I waited until it was warm enough for them to sprout, they wouldn't have time to sprout, grow, and get big enough to do anything before the heat would stress them. And then they'd fall victim to disease. So you are correct. I only transplant in very early spring. And then I use the same seeds. How many days to germinate? Do cover or not cover? Replying to Kara. Oh, they're talking about that. So, y'all, I'm heading out of here. I'm going to finish transplant. Even with this cold weather coming, I have holes dug over there. I'm putting this huge hedge of hydrangeas out that'll be gorgeous driving up my road. And I have 5 more to transplant. I'm going to go dig them and go get some more leaves as I begin to leaf my native border, and I'm hoping you can see there's one big pile of leaves back there. That is a BB in the Astrodome compared to what I need. So I'm just really excited that, first off, my online courses, we're hearing lots of great things about it. If you need help seed starting, or if you want to have a little cutting garden, go over to our website and check out my online courses. This is the place you get to ask me direct questions. Well, thank you, Becky, about Leaf Flower Farming School. And sign up for our newsletter. That's where you find out. We send out one a week with my new blog and things that are happening. That's where you find out about specials and about Facebook Lives. So please check that out. And I am going to sign off here and go dig some hydrangeas. So, hey, till I meet you again, watch our Facebook page for the next week's announcement. And I'm hoping to show y'all some hoeing in the garden if I can get it dry enough, but we'll see. Hey, you're so welcome, Lauren and Jason. Thank you, Tammy. Y'all have a good week. Ciao.